You need one? No, you got an iPad. Okay. Probably why, right?
What's that?
Probably because you guys have that iPad or laptops.
We have everything on here.
If my laptop, this one's right. It's huge. Ancient. It's fine.
That's it. So, it's what they have left.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's, oh, is it?
Yeah. I'd rather actually have things written down.
That's shit. Hey, Frank.
Real at some point, probably.
Well, I mean, you know.
I used to be obsessed with typewriters.
Sure.
I did some choices in the typewriter.
Yeah, for sure. So I had issues hearing that table again.
I cannot hear Jacqueline at all, so.
Oh, yeah. Can I go, is she over there? Can I go talk to her? Mhm.
You feel free, you can just. You're wrong, right?
Oh.
Taylor.
Taylor.
She's back. We lost everybody.
You're gonna delay her.
Access my phone.
All right, call this meeting to order. Please rise for pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Thompson? Mrs. Moore? Mr. Gray?
Here.
Mr. Bittner,
Here.
Ms. Wong? Here. Mr. Lunder?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Thank you.
Approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of council, November 12th, 2024. We had a couple additions or corrections to those. So Parks and Recreation should be referred to as a board, not a committee. 2024-0-20. This ordinance is still with the ordinance committee. And the adjournment was by Mrs. Thompson. Mrs. Moore was not present. Are there any other additions or corrections to the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes as amended.
Motion made by Ms. Wong, second by Mr. Gray. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moore? Mr. Gray?
Abstain.
Yeah.
Mr. Bittner,
Abstain.
Ms. Wong,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder, Mr. Johnson?
Aye. Correspondence, clerk, do we have any correspondence this evening?
I do not.
Does any member of council have correspondence this evening? Hearing none. We move on to administrative department head reports. Fair and Safety Director, good evening, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Johnson, members of the council, the public here this evening. We have, three of the new Monroe Lake City signs installed, one at Lake Shore, one at Munson, and then one at Lake Overlook Beach Park. If you haven't seen them, they look great. We hope to get the rest in next few weeks. We've received 5 bids on the Southland Storm Sewer Replacement Project. We are gonna work with CT Consultants to look at those bids and get it down to one contractor. The fire department's stand arounds, will be Saturday, December 7th, starting at noon. Also, the police department's Santa Blue Outburst is Sunday, December 8th, and that'll start at 3 o'clock. Shopping, at Target will begin probably around 5 p.m. Also, Chief Forsythe stopped over. We have about a dozen turkeys available if friends or neighbors need turkeys. They'll be around tomorrow. probably Thursday to distribute those if you know of anybody that would like to turn. That concludes my report tonight.
Good, thank you. Administrative Director, Ms. Martin, good evening.
What gave me their letter for Lake Camp, for Karen 2025. I don't have the estimated start dates, but we do plan on working on Woodside Road, Montville to Moreland Road, and from Moreland Road, Woodside to Montville Road. As for Linden Road, they will be done, the first portion by Christmas, but that temporary road will be in place as they finish in the spring. The law director RFQ is posted in the News Herald, and, the deadline to respond is December 3rd, so that's Herald, and the engineer RFQ, brought in 6 quality statements, and, my goal was to have them all reviewed by then.
Good, thank you. Law Director, Mr. Lyons, good evening.
Good evening, and I have no report, but I'm willing to answer questions.
Thank you. Are there questions for the administration? I have one from Mr. Lyons. So did you determine whether council can put something on the ballot without it being a charter amendment?
The answer appears to be yes. Can't say definitively, but here's what I did, research. Ohio Secretary of State have a couple of election manuals, one of the election manuals that are followed by the election board. And that are available to everybody to look at on the Secretary of State website. Is a issues and ballot manual. And in that, it's, you know, I may not have the name quite the list, but in that manual, they indicate that there are 3 different ways, you know, to put a ballot, to put an ordinance on the, you know, before the voters. One is by an initiative petition. One is if there's a referendum on something that council is against, and then. And this is new to my best knowledge. It has not been used in Lake County. It indicated, and I was surprised about this, that you can do an advisory election on an issue that council want to have to the voters that are on the lake. Whether it's the cannabis or some other one, you can put it on and you can vote. I talked to the second in command at the Board of Election, very knowledgeable guy, her name is Dante Lewis, just to make sure I was reading that correctly. And he said, well, you know, we've never done that, at least during this time. So aware that the city of Hubbard, Ohio, had done this in the most recent election cycle. And he said he had talked already to Board of Elections person, probably at this level in the county where Hubbard is, which I think is Trumbull. And he was going to follow up with that person, to get more information. Hubbard framed it as an issue, the same way, where you put an issue on the ballot, like the charter review issue, and that's how they put it on. And so if everybody follows the ballot and issue handbook, then we just put it on. And I think Dante was was gonna check with the Hubbard, I mean, not with the Hubbard person, but I think the Trumbull person, and he was gonna give me more information. So I should have a little bit more to send out. And I'll probably just send it out to you, by way of an email once I get that back.
Okay.
Week or so.
Okay.
But I think full speed ahead, that's the way it looks. And I was greatly surprised, but in that, because I know everybody's waiting to know how Mentor does it, because Mentor, in Kirtland, in order to pass a zoning change, they require the voters to approve it. And I was always aware of that, and I thought it was an unusual procedure, and it wasn't in, the revised code to do that. But each Mentor and Kirtland have charter provisions that provide that the only way to change it is to have a vote of the people. And when you have a charter amendment or a charter provision, then the Board of Elections follows that. And it doesn't, while it may get submitted, for looking at by the Office of the Secretary of State for ballot language, it really doesn't get a close observation. The same way our charter amendments are submitted for a cursory review down to the Secretary of State, but pretty much it's a hands-off in terms of any type of charter amendment. So if council would want to follow better, require any type of some sort of regulation, they have to pass the voters, then you could follow the better formula, which would be to make it a charter amendment, or certain types of legislation have to be approved by the voters. And there's no question that we get on. Otherwise, I think it's going to be an advisory election, but I think that's pretty good information for the future council. So that's my report.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the administration?
Yes. I have a question for the mayor. The new signs, they do look nice. I'm just curious about the difference between the original design that we had received and what the actual finished product looks like. Particularly the support pillars are different. They were sort of that lighthouse tower style with the scales detail on them as nautical accents. And then we had asked about putting an established 1924 banner under the medallion as a way to just sort of, like many cities have done. I'm just wondering if that,
I will ask him.
Okay.
I think he's aware of the established, and maybe he's not quite done
Okay.
with all that, and
all right,
I'll check that.
thank you.
Other questions? None. We'll move on to board committee and commission reports. Parks and Recreation.
The Parks and Recreation Board met on Thursday, November 14 at 6:30 PM. In attendance were board members Pachatsko, Kozlowski, Stefanski, and Long, along with Mayor Eva and Ms. Ice. Absent were board members Turi and Roos. No members of the public were present. As you know, issue 7, which was the Mentor on the Lake Charter Amendment number 6, did pass, and it will amend Charter Section 7.04A, which is in regard to Parks and Rec as proposed. With regard to vacant board positions, board member Roos has resigned her position. We have received applications, and new member Nate Dewar will be welcomed in January. That leaves one vacancy still on Parks and Rec. Our board rules are being reviewed by Mr. Kozlowski and Ms. Stefanski, taking into account suggestions from all board members. The group discussed incorporating a process to lay out plans for the year by January, thus allowing the opportunity to request funding consideration from council at the time of annual appropriations. The group also discussed the perpetual problem of needing to reschedule the last 2 regular meetings of the year that are in conflict with major end-of-the-year holidays. A motion to change our standing meeting dates in 2025 to the second Thursday of each month at 6:30 PM was approved by a vote of 4-0. The month of January will be accepted, however, due to a different committee meeting already scheduled for that date. The board voted instead to hold its first meeting of 2025 on Thursday, January 16 at 6:30 PM. Chair Pachatsko reached out and found that the Mentor on the Lake Branch Library is interested in partnering with us in 2025 for more Star Seekers programs and for movie nights, splitting the offsite showing fee for their license to view many copyrighted titles. The chair also provided board members with a list of other potential activities we could plan in the new year, and these will be discussed further in the next meeting. The meeting adjourned at 8:09 PM, and the next regular board meeting will be scheduled for Thursday, December 12th at 6:30 PM. That concludes my report.
Yeah, I have a question for you regarding support. You indicated there's a new member starting in January.
And
Yes.
that has not been submitted.
I was gonna say, council hasn't
Okay.
approved anything yet.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right.
So,
Applications have been received, and the intent is for new numbers to begin January rather than taking over for the end of this term, since there's only 4 weeks left. Okay. I stand corrected.
ordinance committee.
The ordinance committee met on November 19th at 6:30 PM. In attendance were all members of the ordinance committee, including Council President Johnson. Also present were invited guests, Police Chief Forsyth, and a member of the public, Renee Schaefer. The committee agreed to changes on proposed street and residential parking ordinances that is now 2024-0-22 that will address enforcement concerns raised by the police chief. More detailed definitions of vehicle classes and stricter restrictions on parking of construction vehicles in residential areas will be considered. The committee also reviewed potential changes to 1242.03 conditional use permits in order to add processes to revoke or suspend a conditional use permit and for appeals of those decisions. Council President Johnson decided this work should be continued by the zoning committee. Therefore, the work done thus far will be forwarded to that group for completion. Under new business, the group considered residential sign regulations. This was prompted following public comment voiced at the last council meeting regarding vulgar language posted on residential property. This committee reviewed several documents related to content targeted complaints, obscenity law, content neutral sign law, and advice to communities like ours. We understand clearly now how any speech, and political speech in particular, is protected by First Amendment freedom of speech rights when posted on private property. And this has been upheld in court on multiple occasions. Therefore, we cannot regulate residential sign language in any way. But we did discuss whether to introduce a content neutral sign law to regulate, for example, other parameters such as the overall size, placement, and materials that can be used for residential signs. However, we also thought that such additions may cause conflict with some generally accepted residential decor, such as large or light up or flashing holiday, birthday, or welcome signs, and will not prevent complaints like the one voiced before council. Therefore, based on all of these aspects, it is the committee's recommendation that council refrain from introducing residential sign restrictions. Finally, the committee reviewed suggestions on how to simplify the proposed short-term rental regulations. That is 2024-0-20. However, this group still feels strongly in favor of requiring regular property and safety inspections, as would be the case for any hotel or motel in business, and in favor of enacting a lodging tax. An update on progress of those revisions will be presented at the next meeting. This meeting was adjourned at 8:21 p.m. and the next scheduled meeting is tentatively for Tuesday, December 17th at 6:30 p.m. That concludes my report.
Okay. And there was the public engagement of the Envision meeting. Did the mayor want to speak at all about that?
Sure. We had a good crowd, probably 30 to 35 residents. And
Especially because of the snow. That was a really good crowd.
yeah, I did tell Ryan, we want to look at that next time. Schedule things down, it's gonna snow, but in spite of the snow, we did have a good crowd. The storyboards, when everybody was out of here, they were full of pins and suggestions, which was great. Ryan and Jen and Emil would go back and they're going to record everything that was on those storyboards and then present everything to the steering committee in January. I appreciate everybody that showed up. There were a lot of good comments on storyboards, like I said, and the surveys are coming in pretty steadily. That's a really good sign.
Good, thank you. All right, were there any other board committees or commissions that met? Hearing none, we'll move on to open the public to speak. If you'd like to speak, please come to the lectern, state your name and address to the record.
Jason Morris, address is 5845 Lake Road. I forwarded everyone on council my initial grievances on the topic of the current CRA program. Just to be clear with everybody, I am a recipient of the approved CRA from 2020 and looking for an additional CRA benefit for the 32 by 50 garage that I built on my property this year. My garage project began when I received my approved zoning permit from Mentor on the Lake in August of 2023, and in less than a year completed as per the approved final inspection by the county on July 25th and final inspection by Mentor on the Lake on July 30th. After reviewing the documentation available on the city's website, collecting all the required documentation on November 9th, in good faith, I applied for the CRA. On Tuesday, the 12th, Jacqueline denied my application stating new construction for residential dwellings no longer applies to CRA exemptions. I had confirmed this with our law director before responding. The CRA was amended by council on December 2023, under codified ordinance 89304. First thing I want to point out, this isn't a residential dwelling. This is an outbuilding, it's garage. This also means the city has been advertising on the city's website under these special programs, information that did not have any documented disclaimers or time limits, but was 11 months old. It's out of date. When I pointed this out, I was told our website is not legally binding. As I understand, if this was a business that did this, they would be liable for false advertising. I feel since my permit began prior to the revision, I should be grandfathered into the original CRA. I have to say it feels a little cheating. I don't know if this is true, but I heard the city attempted to place a moratorium on dollar stores. He could not stop Dollar General because they already had their permits in place. If that is true, why does this not apply to me? But moving on, I chose to read the current CRA ordinance and the updated information present on the website. After this review, I felt that I still met the criteria, and on the 19th, I again reapplied in good faith under the current form. This is better than no CRA for this garage at all. I was again denied. I have had multiple emails with Jacqueline where I believe I firmly built my case based on facts in the ordinance and the city website. One such example is the city website right now is presenting a document referred to as a list of improvements, improved examples that are qualified for the CRA on the special events program. It's this little document right here. And based on what I'm hearing, this thing I might as well wipe my backside with, because it clearly lists a garage, an outbuilding. But I am told this is not acceptable. A guide is just a guide, not a promise. And I understand that, but this feels like more false advertising. Yesterday, she informed me the issue with this request is in 2016, the ordinance clearly stated an exemption for residential new construction. In 2023, council specifically chose to admit that section, which means there is a direct intent, and I did verify with Mr. Lyons and the mayor. Why not verify with the council what their intent was? That statement contradicts a conversation that I had with Council President Rob Johnson, where he informed me on November 20th, we were trying to stop the new construction of entire houses because most of those were builders buying lots, building, and able to increase prices, and they would have built anyways. Rob's statement is also supported as current ordinance 89304, section B, section 1, section B, informs this program is no longer eligible for new construction of a single residential dwelling. Again, this is a garage. I have plenty of other examples quoting ordinance on this topic that I have already communicated with Jacqueline. It appears she is dismissing every argument under the concept that council removed new construction from the CRA when it appears the intent was removing new construction of a dwelling or home. I also believe some of her statements and examples contradict her claims. It is my opinion that as the overseer, she is misinterpreting this program in a manner that could be dangerous and can be twisted around to deny any and all residents who apply. I feel the residents may need an attorney to represent them at this point. Perhaps I should ask for the statistics of who's been approved and denied since December's revisions. I suspect hardly anyone's applied, given in 11 months, it was me that pointed out our website had outdated information. It's pretty clear how lackluster the promoting of this program is, and the advertising is clearly misleading. This program was not this difficult when I applied for it in 2020 and should not be this ambiguous today. As of Thursday, Friday last week, I have formally requested that Jacqueline make an appeal for me to the Community Reinvestment Area Housing Council regarding her denial of my application. But I wanted to be here tonight to make sure my voice was heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, respond, just very limited. The only contact I had with you, Jason, you sent me an email, one email, and I responded one day later, and I said that this was an administrative matter. I mean, that's really all I said, and that I wasn't involved in making that decision, right or wrong. But I thought that you were acting like I was supporting what you had to say, and I neither, hang on. I neither supported it or opposed it. Okay, I said it was an administrative matter. I mean, is that a correct statement, what I just said?
I agree.
Okay, thank you. That's,
Here, so,
and I didn't say that to be antagonistic in this case.
No,
I just wanted to have kind of the record straight because
it's very clear that Jacqueline implied otherwise. Her first response to me on my original application was that she's consulted with the law director, which last night it was you. But your response to me, I agree with what you responded to me, but
so. I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong from council. When we did amend this, our purpose was to eliminate new construction of residential dwellings. And the purpose for that was, again, because you're getting builders buying lots. Building a new house on the property and charging higher rates because they could offer an abatement. I don't think our intent was ever to eliminate additions attached or unattached to an existing dwelling. And that fell under remodeling. I think at this point, then we need to clarify within the ordinance that that a remodel can include any addition attached or unattached to an existing dwelling. Is there any disagreement from anyone on council on that statement?
If I can add, we did, when we processed all of these CRA applications, the final, and correct me if I'm wrong, the final approval is the Lake County Auditor's Office. And the Lake County Auditor's Office has our ordinances that go along with this. And this particular application was also denied by the Lake County Auditor's Office. And I want to add some of the language used in Mr. Morris's email toward Ms. Martin, language such as abusive toward him. I don't appreciate it. You think that's funny?
I do, sir. I've read these emails.
Okay,
I have read them. I also
Okay,
read where she said she contacted the law director. But apparently she didn't.
Okay, you guys could take this outside for all I care. It's not gonna happen in here. My understanding is that the auditor does not make a decision on whether that is solely our city's responsibility to determine whether something is approved or not approved. That they don't have a say in that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lyons. Because that is our ordinance. They don't interpret our laws.
I was surprised by what the mayor said. I had never heard that. Now, I'm not saying that he's incorrect, okay? But I never heard that the auditor has to. I thought they approved what we approved. Now, I could be wrong on that. I mean, I know in one of the emails, there was a reference to Mike Hodgson, one of the auditors. Person, I know in the email said that Mike Hodgson said that this is new construction. I know that was what was reported in the email. Whether or not, I'm not sure how the auditor's office does their business in terms of separating CRAs and how they account for it. So the mayor may be 100% correct. I just have never heard it.
So I'm thinking can I finish what I was about to say? Thank you. So I'm thinking if we clarify in the law, in the ordinance, that any addition, attached or unattached, would constitute a remodel, would make it appropriate, which is what our intent was all along. that if somebody's going to have, currently owns a home and they add on to it. Because if I built another room onto my house, that's new construction as well onto a house. It's not a remodel, it's because the insert side would be the remodeling of a house. If you're adding an addition on, that is new construction onto that house. So if we clarify that, I would think that would alleviate the concern. Yes,
The Ohio Revised Code, where the CRA is, described, clarifies what they're not.
and what specifically does it say in the Ohio Revised Code?
Basically,
And this has an existing structure. This is just an unattached addition to the existing structure.
that was all right.
Well, I will ask the law director to look into this and see what our options are. I mean, as far as I was concerned, we was just get rid of the CRA completely, but I lost that vote, so. All right.
If I may add, if we're gonna start quoting the Ohio Revised Code, which I was told was piecing together things to fit my need. Ohio Revised Code actually does say that CRA is acceptable for new construction as well as remodel.
Anyone else wish to come to the lectern and speak in the open to the public section? Hearing done, we will move on to legislation before council. Ordinance number 2024-0-18, if you please read it by its title.
Ordinance number 2024-0-18, third reading. An ordinance amending ordinance 2024-0-06 in order to update the retire-rehire regulations for city employees and declaring an emergency.
Is there any discussion on this? Is there any motions on this?
Motion passed.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Bittner, second by Ms. Wong. Roll call, please.
Has it been brought out?
Yes, it was brought out.
Oh, because
It was incorrect on here. Yes, on the agenda. Yes, that's why she didn't read it. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moore?
Abstain.
Mr. Gray?
Aye.
Mr. Bittner?
Aye.
Ms. Wong? Aye. Mr. Lunder?
Abstain.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
I didn't know it was brought out.
Ordinance number 2024-0-20, if you please read it by its title.
Ordinance number 2024-0-20, second reading, referred to ordinance committee. An ordinance amending the zoning code by creating new chapter 1270 of the codified ordinances for the regulation of short-term rentals in the city and declaring an emergency.
Still in the ordinance committee. Does this come out now? Not out of the committee. That is still in the committee. Ordinance number 2024.
Mr. President,
Yeah,
I still have remodel questions in my head, so but hang on, it's not. But so while you guys were talking, I heard a bunch of abstaining on 2024-0-18,
yes, there were two abstentions.
two,
Yes.
okay,
Or were there three? There were two.
4 to 2, okay, so it did pass then, correct?
Regardless, council rules say that abstentions go with the majority, so
I don't,
yeah, they do. Council rules say that. I looked it up.
I don't remember that, but I'll doubt everybody tonight.
I've actually read our council rules. All right, ordinance, where were we? Now I got lost. Where were we? Ordinance number 2024-0-22. Can you please read it by its title?
Ordinance number 2024-0-22, second reading, referred to ordinance committee. An ordinance amending codified ordinances 452.01, 452.17, and 452.99, and repealing ordinances 452.02 and 452.03 relating to parking on the streets.
Is it still in the committee?
Yes, it is.
Ordinance number 2024-0-23, if you please read it by its title.
Ordinance number 2024-0-23, second reading. An ordinance creating codified ordinance 648.15 noise.
Is there any discussion on this one tonight?
Question. How is this going to be enforced? I was looking at it and there's quite a few things in there that I'm questioning how the police would enforce them. I see a lot of things in there that are gonna be left up to interpretation. One of them is like the very first thing that talks about things that are being annoying and scroll down here to it. There's no extra. There it is. So like in the very first paragraph, it talks about, it's the wrong one, sorry. There's so many pages here, hang on. So in this one, it talks about, you cannot make noise that is recklessly causing inconvenience, annoyance, or alarm to others. To me, that's very subjective. Based upon who is complaining about the noise, what the noise is, who is coming out to assess the situation. I think that's very subjective. When we look at number 1, it talks about human voices, music, recreational play or entertainment, amusement, noise from a television or other electronic device, or incessant domesticated animal sounds to a level above which is considered reasonable and or circumstances where neighbors should reasonably expect peace and quiet. That's very subjective. And I think about all the times that we have neighbor wars going on and this just creating an absolute nightmare for our police departments. In the summertime, kids are outside playing till 9-10 o'clock at night, depending on when the sun sets. And I think this is just gonna open up a big can of worms for, again, neighbor wars on, I heard your kids at 9:55 at night and I was, watching a movie or trying to go to sleep or something like that. I'm very uneasy about that. There's stuff in here about the automobiles, motorcycles, vehicles out of repair, so loaded, I don't know what loaded means, or in such a manner to create loud and unnecessary grating, grinding, rattling, and other noises audible at a distance of 100 feet or more. Somebody's muffler falls off their car and they gotta wait 2 weeks till payday to get it fixed. Are they gonna get a misdemeanor ticket because they have to wait 2 weeks because their muffler rattles and makes noise every time they pull it around to their driveway or go down the road? Then we get into construction, so no noise after 9 and 7, which I think there's already things in our noise ordinance about, like when you can run equipment and not run equipment and things like that. And then it says, this subsection shall not apply to noise created by emergency repairs authorized in writing by the city. Well, if the transformer or the telephone pole blows at 2 a.m, who's gonna give the electric company written permission to go up there and fix it? The water main break happens at 2 a.m, who's gonna give Aqua written permission at 2 a.m to go out there and fix this? Winter season is coming. It talks in here about snow plowing. So it reads that unless you live in a commercial district and good cause is shown, the use of any snow plow, snow blower, other machine, mechanism, apparatus, tool, or otherwise motorized mechanical device for the removal, moving, displacement, or redistribution of snow, unless the noise created thereby is effectively muffled and reduced between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. the following day. It doesn't apply to the city service department and people who are acting on behalf of the city, but I know a lot of people who work in factories who gotta be at work at 5 a.m. I know people who leave at 3:30 to go to work. I know people who work in hospitals who don't get home till after midnight. They can't park on the street because there's a parking ban. If you got a foot of snow in your driveway, you gotta move it somehow. And they can't be out there shoveling that much snow. So if they have a snow blower or a snow plow or something like that, like, are they gonna get a ticket if they're out there removing the snow because they gotta get in or out of work? I'm on call. If I get called in the middle of the night, am I supposed to say I can't come out? Why? Because I can't get the snow out of my driveway and there's 18 inches in my driveway? Like, I think this is too subjective and just way more than we need, and it's going to make residents unhappy. It is going to make more fights among residents, and I don't think the police are gonna be able to enforce it. Cause it's gonna be your word against my word, or by the time they showed up, the noise stopped. And then it's gonna be your word against my word. I don't support it. I see it creating a mess.
Like to respond?
Go right ahead.
This proposed ordinance was created with input from the police chief. And that first paragraph, I assume you're referring to A, read a lot from it, is very similar to what is currently in the only residential noise ordinance that we have, which is under peace disturbances, but disorderly conduct. It is similarly vague and ambiguous, which means that currently the way noise complaints are managed by the police is exactly by their discretion and their interpretation of the conditions, time of day, time of the year, day of the week, whether it's a major holiday, and all other associated circumstances before they decide what to do. And they do exactly that. They decide what to do based on those circumstances. So kids playing outside when it's still light out at 9:45 in July may not be the same as activity of a similar sort that is going on at 9:45 in the middle of December, for example. Or if it's on a Tuesday night versus on a Friday night or Saturday night. So we have not done anything to reduce or unnecessarily restrict the discretion used by the responding officer, which is exactly the way noise complaints are dealt with now. But we were very careful not to do that. The listing of many of these things is to state examples of what are considered noise and may be unreasonable under certain circumstances. But again, it's the under certain circumstances, and that leaves it up to the discretion of the responding officer. There is a clause in here for emergencies, and that was specifically to cover
But it
the
only refers to cities being able to do things in emergencies.
under section B is that it does not apply to activities that are necessary during an emergency condition. So the transformer that blows at 2 a.m, the water main that breaks at 3 a.m. This does not apply to that. We do not have construction restrictions in residential areas. The ordinance is for commercial areas that abut residential districts. That is currently written into 6B. So there was a lot in this that we felt we needed to spell out explicitly in order to allow neighbors to know what things might be considered unacceptable in certain circumstances. This will also help if we do have short-term rental regulation ordinance at some point, because one of the many complaints about those is noise and what constitutes noise in residential areas.
So then I'll reach out to the chief too, because I want to know how it's going to enforce this.
We don't actually anticipate, and he did not either, that it will change the way they're managing noise. This just spells out a lot of the types of things they're asked to respond to.
Can I try to add some words to this discussion? Noise, I bet you we would run the number of noise complaints that have come in the dispatch center last 2 years. I don't know if it's 50, 100, 200, but I bet you there's probably only been a handful of tickets that were issued because noise complaints, from a police standpoint, are a lot like the fire department. And the police generally don't issue firecracker citations. Somebody blows off a firecracker unless the police see it, because it's hard to get witnesses. This kind of a delineation, I agree, you could say it's subjective, okay, but it gives somebody an idea of what could be objectionable to other people and what is objectionable to other people, that they view annoying, cause the police to get called over to that situation, and the police chief would have to get the stance in front. I would have to believe 9 times out of 10, they're gonna hire from that. When the police go, they say, look, we've had a noise complaint. You know, and if we have to come back here, then maybe we're gonna have to issue a citation. And generally, probably to a very high degree, that solves it. It doesn't always solve it. And the police then, they have to go back 2 times and 3 times. Then the police may think, what the heck is going on here? And so then the police are gonna see if they can hear unreasonable noise and make their own decision. Be separate from the people that are complaining. But it gives a pretty clear tool to the police in order to do it. And I do remember that involved in more of the procedure on this than maybe just the actual violations. Because I think these violations are used by some other cities in terms of this particular category. They weren't created out of whole cloth by the very powerful ordinance things. I hope that helps in terms of how it happens. And maybe it would be good to know how many complaints came in last year and how many citations were actually.
So to address the snow plowing and noises that would be created by that, that is covered under or shown just cause. So they are, you know, if you come home late from work and you get in your driveway, that's shown just cause. That would cover that last time. So
Thank you.
I know I passed the police department report to all council every month. It may be an incident line item on that report. And I know if we talk about like barking dogs, the officer will go out and sit there for 10 minutes. And if it doesn't stop, then something will be.
that, it might be under disorderly conduct though, because that's currently what they can only use is that.
Okay,
We have no.
is that what Chief said?
Yes,
Okay.
we don't have a current noise.
A category?
Correct.
Okay.
It's under disorderly conduct, is what you told us.
So does the safety director have any concerns over this?
I think it's a little wordy, but if Chief Forsythe, you know, discretion is kind of, you know, depends on the officer who goes out to, which makes it difficult. If it was more specific, I think, you know, I feel better now that, you know, we're not, when we talk about snow plowing, things like that, that's not included. As long as it's, you know, spelled out in there. I'm okay with it. And again, it's depends on the time of year, as Juan said. You know, we get complaints about, you know, snow plowing, but to Mrs. Morris' point, people come and go. Some people have to work at 3 o'clock in the morning. So you're gonna hear a snow plow at 3 o'clock. So I think leaving it up to the chief to enforce and educating the staff over there is gonna be the way to go.
Anybody else have comments? Any motions on this tonight? Not, it'll move on to third reading. Okay. Ordinance number 2024-0-24, if you please read it by its title.
Ordinance number 2024-0-24, second reading, an ordinance amending codified ordinances 212.01, posting places and declaring an emergency.
Any discussion on this tonight?
2 questions. One, it's good to see that Ohio Administrative Code, Ohio Revised Code is coming around to the electronic age if they're gonna allow us to be able to post electronically. Does this eliminate us having to post the paper places? So should we be also looking in conjunction with this an amendment to council rules?
But we will if we pass this.
I got a question. Mr. Lyons, we talked about this a few months ago, that you were gonna look into it.
I finally did.
Okay. No, because you know, what I see happening is that the police officer say it goes into McDonald's. There's no place to post it over there. They give it to a person at the counter, they look at it, and they throw it away. And it's, it's like useless right now. It's, I don't know what they do at the other places like Marathon or the library. I don't know what happens over there.
The purpose of the posting thing is to get the information out to the people so that they can see it. This is more indicated that the revised code did come into the electronic age on this. And, but it doesn't mean that we can't continue to post things at the library and one or two other places where we think people will see it, so that it'll get as wide a circulation as you can. But this, I thought was, my, last effort to try to, have Taylor like me. It should make her job a little bit easier going forward.
I didn't even know.
All right.
Did we sort out the ability to get access to the necessary electronic media, either the social media or the website or both, using a city account, not your personal accounts?
Like a council Facebook page, essentially. It would be a
Well,
it'd be a specific Facebook page that if I left down the line, the new council clerk.
The account would be tied to her email,
Okay.
attached to you, to the Facebook page.
Yeah,
For us, her having to use her own
Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
account
rather
or
than
whatever.
personal.
We'd have to do
Facebook.
something like that. or-
Yeah.
But we'll get that sorted if we pass this.
Okay, all right.
My suggestion is that we pass it, and I'm gonna suspend the rules.
Motion made by
Well,
Mr.
until we have that Facebook page, or you could make it effective maybe January 1st. Or you could make it effective now, but you have to post it on our website and then plus a social media account, my recollection of the way, that the state law reads. We have both, I know we have our own website, and we have the backup also in place.
It's effective immediately, passage, so we can't do.
Keep the new website.
Well, the Facebook, which is to me is the social media.
Yes.
If we have that, then we can start posting it there, and if we want to put it in a different place later on, that's.
So right now, the administration can post those things. We just have to work out her being able to do that, so,
Okay, right,
yes,
okay.
so. There was a motion made by Mr. Lunder. Is there a second to Mr. Lunder's motion?
Second that, because it eliminates people.
Motion made by Mr. Lunder, seconded by Mrs. Moore on suspension of the rules. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moore,
I,
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Ms. Wong,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Motion for passage.
second,
Motion made by Mr. Lunder, seconded by Mrs. Moore for passage. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moore,
I,
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Ms. Wong,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Ordinance number 2024-0-26, please read it by its title.
Ordinance number 2024-0-26, an ordinance levying liens for expenses incurred for lawn maintenance and or culvert repairs, old business.
Any discussion on this?
I've got a question. Over the past years, we've had numerous people all summer long not cutting the grass, and we've been cutting it. All of a sudden, we just have a couple of them. Is everybody getting behaving themselves?
Well, sometimes if they pay the bill, we send an invoice, so they have to give this invoice. So it's that, some of those houses, like, we actually got rid of a ton of vacant properties. So some people now own property, with different people. That's a part of it. But that's the invoices that Chuck gave me to go off of, but I know we have been working a lot harder at getting them to just pay the bill.
so these are people that have not paid in quite some time, I'm assuming.
It's, I guess the scene, it's like a corporation almost with one of them, and they never pay, and it's just like this ongoing, usually we're just gonna cut their grass and keep charging them. And then get a collective, so many of them, and then apparently it's been like this for years.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules, let's get our money back.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Moore, seconded by Mr. Lunder for suspension of the rules. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Ms. Wong,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Motion for passage.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lunder, second by Mrs. Moore for passage. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Ms. Wong,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Ordinance number 2024-0-27, if you could please read it by its title.
Ordinance number 2024-0-27, an ordinance extending the existing 6-month moratorium on the acceptance and processing of applications for zoning and or occupancy permit approvals for cannabis operations within the city and the issuance of such approvals in the city of Mentor on the Lake for a period of 6 months and declaring an emergency.
Discussion on this?
Just wanted to mention that although the Lake County Board of Elections has not officially posted their election calendar for 2025, other counties have, and so I guess they're assuming they know when things are, but tentatively it appears the spring election will be Tuesday, May 5th, which makes the issues deadline February 5th. The general election will be Tuesday, November 4th, and that would make the issues deadline August 6th. So depending on which election you were potentially thinking about putting an issue on the ballot, 6 months, 6 months does not leave you much time, because the election would be May 5th, and then that would need to be certified for us to decide whatever we're doing with that before this moratorium expires. And second, it means that you would actually have to have the issue ready to go with all of the requirements met, to meet the issue's deadline of February 5th, which is pretty close.
Can I add something to that? Talk to Dante. The gas went on in May, but the city have to pay for it. And it depends if it's another issue. That is a matter, for example, the judge Travis is up for re-election. And if somebody runs against him or there are two Democrats, so that there's a primary in Mentor on the Lake, then I don't believe we would have to pay, for that. Or he also said that there's a possible state issue that may be coming, that may be not in May. And if that's the case, then we wouldn't have to pay for it. But if we were a standalone, then we would have to pay for that election. So.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this? Yeah, we need to do something with this tonight or the moratorium expires, so.
Can I ask a question? What is the, what would the advantage versus disadvantage be of passing this now and then voting to extend it again once we decide which election versus choosing a longer period now, like 9 months or 12 months? It was said previously that 12 months was not,
I always
less defensible.
think that shorter moratorium period, a little bit more defensible. That council was actually looking at ideas in terms of trying to decide which way to go. I really don't think there's much risk to do it for a 1-year period. But I think that it's still just a little bit more defensible if it's a 6 month. That was the only reason I made it a 6 month. And I don't think once you get there, if you started the process to put it on the ballot, then I don't think extending it 6 months, could be any problem. Only just a little bit more paperwork.
I still feel that we should go to December 31st, 2025. Moratorium.
That certainly gives you the option of deciding whether to use the spring election or the general election. We certainly would not have to pay for the general election because there's going to be other things on it.
Well, yeah, well, Councilman Martin is going to be on that.
Anybody else?
I'm over
I'm
moratoriums.
not in support of the moratorium.
I'm over moratoriums. We keep, every time something happens that we don't like, we're gonna have a moratorium. We've been kicking this thing around for a year. Either I think we should have legislation, allow it, don't allow it. I would love to get the community's input. We've passed these moratoriums numerous times. Nobody's ever come up and said yay or nay. I know that over 60% voted for the legalization of it. I don't know where they stand on the sell of it. I feel like we should, instead of just passing moratoriums and being like, all right, we're gonna let it ride and see what happens next, or see what other people do. We should have had some legislative discussion on this and talked about the different options that we had.
So what do we do now, given that we can't do that in the next 2 weeks?
Rely on the state,
Say,
the regulations do that. They're not allowed, so.
I keep butting in, but it's one of the options. Take the moratorium, a 3-month moratorium in February, to decide either you're gonna pay something or not, and bring it or you're gonna try to put it on. And before it votes, and that means that even in February, if you don't decide it was gonna cost you something, you could still pass it and have it on in November, which maybe that's, you can decide if you want to extend the moratorium after.
some of the conversation we've had while we've talked about this is based on the state regulations. If somebody wanted to even try to open one up within our community, it's virtually impossible. Because of all the restrictions of like 500 feet from this and 500 feet from that. It can't be here and it can't be there. There is very, 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 very few options as to where somebody could even think about putting one of these. But if they do, is it 10% in taxes? Not a bad number. Especially when we have residents who every time we say we need more money, we're gonna have to ask for more money and put out a levy.
It's not 10%.
They don't want, I'm just,
We don't get 10%.
we don't get 10%, the
We get
state is
a-
10%.
We get a percentage of 10%,
But
depending on the volume of sales. And if we have
Yes.
one location.
yes, well, and it's like sales tax from the grocery stores and everything like that. I mean, we get what we get based on sales, but it's an option. If we narrowed it down to what, 1, maybe 2,
But the idea, actually, Mr. Gray did some research, wasn't it just Munson Road?
Yep.
Somewhere
Yep.
else would
Yep.
be the only place.
I don't even know if there's any stores available over there.
So I don't disagree with everything that's been said. I just don't feel that we should back into it by default. So given that we don't have anything now, I'd be most in favor of at least a 3-month extension on moratorium so that we can actually write something that that says what our position is going to be. I know of residents who have said they don't want sales in the city, even though they voted for legal use and possession at home. But they have not said so in a public forum yet. But I think that stating what our regulations would be, even if they're gonna end up being identical to the state, is better than having nothing and better than defaulting it because we ran out of time. That just sounds backwards to me.
Jacqueline, I talked to Chuck. Chuck said that we've had some people inquiring.
Oh, yeah, that's. But. There's really only one location, so. We would be limited to one.
every time this year I talked about looking at writing legislation and that, I was told no, so.
Who told you no?
That's when everybody said, let's send it to the voters, so. We never talked about writing we never wrote legislation at this or attempted to write legislation.
I recall a discussion of what we were going to legislate and then putting that before the voters. that was legislating from what I heard. So don't tell me that nobody talked about actually legislating anything, because I definitely heard that.
But we never actually wrote ours.
No, we haven't gotten to that point yet.
That's my point. We never actually wrote.
What the
any.
problem was, we weren't able to have enough committee meetings because not everybody was available to have the committee meetings to do that. So what I'm hearing is we have a divided council here. Part of it says, screw it, just let anything go. With no actual legislation before council. In terms of any type of licensing fees or whatever that we could place on this. And we have part of council saying, well, we want to make sure that we have something in place that defines what we allow, any protections we need to have in place. And then I hear no motions on this moratorium at all, so.
Would anyone else support a shorter moratorium? To let us figure it out? I mean, we did have a short list, Michelle, of the things that we thought we might add, the limits, and based on what some other cities had said. It just didn't get to that point yet. I mean, we sort of knew this moratorium was going to have to be extended if we were going to legislate. There isn't time for 3 readings. And it's a zoning matter besides. So I mean, if we were gonna talk about legislating this had to have been done months ago in order to make 3 readings by now. So we always knew the moratorium was going to have to be extended if we were going to legislate.
It's worked moratorium before, so. So,
And we knew it was expiring. We should have been working on the legislation, but that's our fault.
Well, seeing that something has to be done, I'm going to make a motion that we extend the existing moratorium for 3 months
So you're making a motion to amend it.
to amend this, to extend the moratorium to 3 months. That allows us time to put down legislation regarding additional restrictions or what ground rules we want to see for this.
There's a second to the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Wong, seconded by Mr. Gray to amend 2024-0-27 to make it a 3-month moratorium. Roll call on the amendment, please.
Mrs. Moore,
I,
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
no,
Ms. Wong,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Motion passage.
Yes, to suspend the rules. Motion made by Mr. Gray to suspend the rules. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Wong. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moore,
I,
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
no,
Ms. Wong,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Motion for passage. Second.
As amended.
As amended.
Motion made by Mr. Lunder, seconded by Mr. Gray to approve as amended. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moore,
no,
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
no,
Ms. Wong,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. There's a 3-month moratorium in place. New business. Do we have any new business tonight?
Can I'd actually like to clarify, where is this legislation going to be worked on? Does it remain in zoning?
Yes. No. No. We're going to move this into a committee of the whole meeting. I'm going to refer this to a committee of the whole. Screw you people, I'm just gonna do it myself. Get you people in order here.
So you're taking it on this one?
Yes,
Thank God.
we do. Take it on and committee of the whole. We can actually get something accomplished here. All right. Is there any old business tonight? Okay. No old business, no new business. All right, open to the public speak. If you'd like to speak, please come to the lectern, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Paul Morris. I live at 7592 Pinehurst. And having been the former councilman for Ward 2 for 8 years, I can concur with you, President Johnson, that council did approve on changing the CRA to eliminate new construction residential family dwellings. Because the concern was, that you stated earlier, that we did not want these developers coming in and buying these empty lots, putting up the houses, and getting higher dollar values for those houses, which was, that actually got, I think it was done once before we locked up that provision. So with that being said, too, I'd like to recommend that perhaps you look at redoing the CRA ordinance to include some definitions. Because I would have thought new construction, single family dwelling, remodel would have been self-explanatory, but apparently it isn't. And I know you're gonna be waiting for Mr. Lyons to do the legal research for that. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, we will close this portion open to the public to speak. Announcements and setting the meetings. At the Parks and Recreation Board meeting, December 12th at 6:30 PM. Is that still correct?
Correct.
Organizational meeting of council is January 7th, 2025 at 7 PM. The Envision Steering Committee, Thursday, January 9th, 7 PM. We now get to schedule a committee of the whole meeting.
We have ordinance committee on Tuesday, December 17th at 6:30.
That was December
17th.
17th at 6:30.
Are you looking at, where are you looking for that committee of the whole meeting?
Hold on, yeah, see what the room's available here. Let's see. Let's see. December. What are people's availability?
December or January?
Oh, December.
That'd be December.
We're gonna move this thing along, folks. Well, since they're still planning and zoning on the second, how's everybody for the 2nd of December?
My wife might have jury. Dating. Michelle might have my wife jury duty, so I got dating.
They'll be done by then, by
That
late
late
day.
7 to 9:30.
9th.
The 9th, did you say? Okay. You're not available the 9th?
Or 10th.
That's council.
10th is council.
You're not available on the 10th. You're busy on the 10th.
I'm good for 3rd.
3rd? 3rd?
I'm not good.
You're not good on the 3rd. Make a
19th.
progress here. The 19th?
19th.
After agenda.
There's no agenda meeting that day.
Correct.
Yeah.
I have a presentation that night
Ah.
on the 19th.
Let's shoot 16th.
23rd.
What about the 16th?
16th.
There's no BCA.
There's no meeting.
16th.
They never have to deal.
16th is good.
16th? Do I hear 16th? All right, 16th at what time? When can we make it here, folks?
6:30.
6:30? All right, 6:30. Committee of Whole, 6:30 on December 16th.
So,
Good luck scheduling one.
well, we can wait till December or January.
In which case, all committees will change anyway,
It's
so.
just three of us. Well, she's probably,
Some dates.
what's that?
Give me some date options.
No, I'm good and well. I'm pretty much over, so.
In December, it's January.
It's December.
Jeannie, what days work for you?
What's that?
I asked Jeannie what days work for her.
The 19th,
No, the 19th, I'm doing a presentation.
or do Wednesdays work for this group?
Wednesdays, as long as the room's available.
The 18th,
That's the council Christmas dinner.
4th,
Before this bad. It's another presentation.
Monday the 9th. Monday the 23rd,
Right on the 19th. Right on the 19th.
What's that?
I'm good on the 19th.
And I, okay. Fine.
December 9th, zoning committee at what time?
6:30.
Anything else?
What are we gonna go over at zoning?
So,
What all are we covering at zoning?
HOA.
zoning is conditional use permits. Zoning is conditional use permits and driveways.
That's,
And conditional,
What, seven?
this is 1242.
Okay. Any other committees? Hearing none. Anything else?
Motion for adjournment.
Oh, thank you. Motion made by Mr. Gray, seconded by Mrs. Moore for adjournment. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Ms. Wong, Mr. Lunder, Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Hmm.
Vision steering committee meeting, five is my break. Or is the vision steering meeting.
You can spell it in steering committee.
So Parks and Recreation, that word is Friday.
How many numbers?
Meeting the vision.
So
There's the ordinance committee.
What day?
That's the seventh.
The 17th. I thought it was the 16th. That's why I'm confused. Fine. At 6:30. Thank you.
Well, the game.
And then passed as amended, so they're gonna make this amendment.
Yeah.
And then
Do you have the enforcement for that?
I amended, how, where do you, sorry, where do you want me to amend? It's still me. I just don't email you in 3 months.
we'll email you the red lined copy of what I've already done.
Then you wanna sign it, time, you wanna sign it now? I'll fix it.
As opposed to wrap it up. Now you can, I'll send you the red line copy. I'll send you a red line.
It's the other person that they already signed, so I should-
We didn't have to.
Sudan. And then, July's hot.
Yeah, because you have the chance for it to.
Bunch of regulation.
Means for the
Appeals process for the. It doesn't even exist in our own traditions or for anything else. Not for the.